Hello, class. This is American National Government Political Science 200. Today we will be covering the politics of poverty, welfare, and health. And my daughter Natalie will be our audience today.
Hello.
All right. So, first off, let's discuss poverty in America. The poverty rate is the percentage of the population whose annual cash income, which was $26,200 in the year 2020, falls below that which is required according to the federal government to maintain a decent standard of living. Right? Okay, so think of that number, 26,200. And that's actually for a non-farm family of four. A non-farm family of four. $26,200. Natalie, do you think that would allow you to maintain a decent standard of living?
No, I don't.
No, why not?
Because that's not enough for the things that you need, kind of. Sure, you can eat enough to live off of that, but will you be healthy? No.
Good point. All right. So, the poverty line is set by the federal government, right? And it basically was determined, how it was calculated was determined decades ago.
Yeah.
In, I think it was the 60s. By the federal government. And basically what they did was they asked, how much does a subsistence diet cost? Right? Subsistence diet. That was the first question they asked. So, what do you think is meant by a subsistence diet, Natalie?
You're not malnourished.
Okay, you're not malnourished, exactly. But it's also no frills, right?
Yeah.
No shrimp, no caviar, no lobster.
No lobster?
Well, no. Subsistence diet would be just the basics. What's necessary in order to sustain life, right?
Yep.
No frills diet. So, they said, okay, how much does it cost to purchase a subsistence diet, say for a month, right? Yeah. And so they purchased a subsistence diet, and then they asked people in a survey to estimate about what percentage of their expenditures each month go to their diet.
Yeah.
And say you're an adult, right? Yeah. What percentage of your expenditures would you think go to just your food?
Not that much. A good portion, but I mean electricity, water,
Housing, transportation.
Yeah, I feel like those
healthcare.
Are bigger than just food.
Right, exactly. Well, they asked people back in the day about what percentage of your expenses go toward food, and people answered about a third. Yeah. And so the federal government said, okay, well, if your diet's about a third, then to figure out your total expenses, we'll just multiply that subsistence diet by 3. Right? Does that sound like a very good way of calculating the poverty level? No, and there have been critics of how it's been calculated ever since, right? But so ever since the beginning, there's been critics of how it gets calculated, right? Because like you say, some people would say, well, Do we buy more things now than we did in the 1960s?
Yes.
Yes. Do you need more things now in order to be a fully functioning, contributing, participating member of our society?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what?
Like Wi-Fi, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, to be honest, if you're going to try to find a job...
If we didn't have Wi-Fi, I wouldn't be in school right now.
Right.
You people wouldn't be in school right now. We would have been all shut down, and we would have been in a farming agriculture community.
Right.
We would still be probably like, what are our big commodities here? Peanuts. Cotton.
Are you talking Alabama? Okay, well, let's get off that. So the point is, a lot of people make the argument, especially liberals, quite frankly, that we have a lot more things that we need to purchase these days in order to be a fully functioning, contributing, participating member of our society. So maybe we should take that into account more when calculating the poverty level.
I agree.
Yeah, that's an interesting argument. Okay, now let's take a look at some liberal criticisms of the official definition, and then some conservative criticisms of the official definition. So, some liberals believe poverty is underestimated because the official definition, and before we get to it, let's point this out. Do liberals always think that poverty is overestimated or underestimated?
Oh,
Underestimated. Exactly. So they think that we have a lot more poverty in the nation than we officially acknowledge. Correct?
Correct.
Right. So they say, okay, number one, the official definition does not take into account regional differences in the cost of living, climate, or accepted styles of living. Where would you rather live on $26,200 a year as a non-farm family of 4? In Alabama or Los Angeles, California?
Personally?
Where would you want to try to live off $26,200?
Economically. Not personally. Alabama.
Why?
Because it's cheaper to live here.
It's much cheaper to live here, right?
Gas is more expensive out there. Housing.
It's mostly housing.
Crazy.
It's mostly housing that's a lot more expensive, right? That's why in like Venice Beach and some other areas, they're having whole areas of homeless people living in tents, right?
With their drugs?
Yeah. Yeah, the stories you hear. But anyway, the point is, a lot of liberals would say that's an indication that there's a lack of affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
And so those people are living in tents, even if they make more than $26,200, because there's no way that they can afford housing in the area. Right? Right. Okay, so next. So my next point on this is, where is housing usually more expensive? In densely populated areas or rural areas?
Rural is cheaper.
Exactly. So where is housing more expensive?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
wasn't paying attention.
In densely populated areas or rural areas?
It's more expensive in densely populated areas because there's a higher demand.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, that leads to the concern, by definition, there are a lot of people in densely populated areas, and those people are probably having a tough time making it on $26,200 a year.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Next, the official definition includes income from welfare and Social Security. So usually I write this on a chalkboard, but I'm just going to say it and you can rewind it if it's confusing. Say you make $20,000.
Yep.
Right? And that's how much you can make
By myself.
by yourself. Exactly. Selling your labor, right?
Yep.
But then you get $8,000 in cash income from welfare and Social Security. So 20,000 plus 8,000, does that take you over 26,200?
Indeed it does.
Indeed it does. So according to the official definition, you're not poor.
What?
Yeah, and liberals would say, yeah, but the only way the person made it over that threshold was because they received some government assistance. And so you're kind of misrepresenting how many poor people we have, right?
Yeah.
That's the argument. Next, it does not count the many near poor. And there are a lot of people in America. It changes by the minute. With the coronavirus, it's changing by the second. There are a lot of Americans. They're living below 125% of the poverty level. And this one I kind of will draw a picture for because this one's kind of important. Just say low, high. Just say income were normally distributed. Bell-shaped curve.
Yeah.
Do you know what that means, Natalie, when someone says...
I know what a bell-shaped curve is.
Okay.
I watched the Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Okay, all right, so very good. So tell me in words then, what is a bell-shaped curve?
A bell-shaped curve is the even distribution of probability. So let's say we're rolling dice.
Well, it can be used for probability. I'm just talking about if we're looking at any kind of characteristic, like income and how it's distributed.
It goes like this.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Okay, so if income were normally distributed, and yeah, the bell-shaped curve is tied a lot to probability as well.
Yes.
But in this context, now this is hypothetical. We'll soon show that this is not the case for income. But imagine that income were normally distributed, right? What would that mean? Put that into words for me, Natalie. What does that mean if income is normally distributed?
If income is normally distributed, then it should...
You can look at this while you do it.
Okay. Then it should be distributed evenly among the population. No. It should be...
Look at this.
The rich are very rich and the poor are very poor.
Okay, there you go.
Class people.
Okay. That the last thing you said was probably the best.
There's a bunch of middle class people.
There you go. Okay, how many really poor people are there?
Not too many.
If it's normally distributed. How many really wealthy people do you have?
Not too many.
Not that many. If it's normally distributed, right? And so you kind of made a classic mistake, no offense, right? Some people say, oh, if something's normally distributed, that means it's evenly distributed across the population. That's not what normally distributed means at all. That would be a flat distribution, right? Normally distributed means a bell-shaped curve describes the distribution the best, right?
Yeah.
It's also called a Gaussian distribution, named for the guy who, was really into statistics and probability
let me guess,
and distribution.
His name was Gaussian.
His name was Gauss. Anyway, so say this is how income was distributed, right?
Okay.
And say the poverty line is down here, right?
Okay.
Okay, there's a poverty line. Then how many people are just to the right of that poverty line?
Quite a few.
Well, quite a few, but still not many, right?
Yeah.
Because you're dealing with the normal distribution, right?
Yes.
So, there it is, right? But now, income is not normally distributed.
What?
Exactly. It's not normally distributed. There are there a lot of people that make no money?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was about to say, I've got 3 of them living right here in this house. Mooches, right? They're my children. So.
I prefer the term leech.
Yeah, okay. So anyway. Sanga, maybe it's good I have 2 pens right here. Hopefully you guys can see. Alright. There we go. So now, let's extend this. This is kind of fun. I like looking at distributions and what people are complaining about. Okay. So, Natalie.
Yes.
Explain to me this brown distribution in words.
In words, so to the left is low?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we can see here, the people to the left are in poverty, and the people to the right are rich.
Outstanding. Okay. All right. Let's make it get a little more sophisticated here, right? With income, there is what's called a basement effect, right? 0.
Yeah.
No one charges you for going into work today, right? But a lot of people make nothing. So a lot of people make nothing. And quite frankly, a lot of people don't make much at all, right? Then you kind of get the middle class. And then income has a huge right-hand tail.
Yeah, the rich people.
Yes, right? So, Bill Gates wouldn't even fit on our little chart here, right? He would be way, way, way to the right. As would, a Warren Buffett and
Steve Jobs if he were
Steve
alive.
Jobs if he were alive, Bezos, and the other people that make, billions and billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So they're way down there. Okay, so stick with me here.
Jeez.
Come back. Here's the poverty line.
Yes.
Since income is distributed normally, how many people are just over the poverty line?
Just over?
Mm-hmm.
Some, but not too many.
If income's distributed normally?
Yes.
Okay. But we've determined income is not distributed normally. It's the brown distribution. So, how many people are just over the poverty line?
Why don't you just answer it if you're looking for
What do they teach you guys in math?
I throw it all out!
Look at that!
I've gotten so far!
Look at that! These are people, right?
Oh boy.
Okay, so if income were normally distributed, how many people are just over the poverty line? Not much. But income's not normally distributed. It's distributed like this. So how many people are just over the poverty line?
Quite a few now.
There you go. A lot. And that is the concern of liberals, is when you say, oh, who's just over the poverty line, you're not hearing some tail of the distribution. You're right in the meaty part of the distribution.
Okay. Jeez.
Well, it's I can't explain it to my own daughter. It's no wonder a lot of Americans don't understand this. Yeah, a lot of people are barely over the poverty line. They're one medical emergency away from bankruptcy. They're one car repair away from financial ruin because now they've lost their transportation. They don't have money to fix their car. And what type of life is that? Is that an enjoyable life when you are one medical emergency or one car repair away from a very difficult, stressful situation?
No, it's not very fun.
No, that's not fun at all.
It's a crisis-driven life.
It's a crisis-driven life, exactly, and that's what liberals are calling attention to. That is, a lot of people are barely over the poverty line. All right, next. Those are the big ones for liberals, right? Okay, so now we get to conservatives, and here's why they don't like the official definition. First, it does not consider the value of family assets. For example, if you own your own mortgage-free home. Okay. Natalie.
Yes.
Your grandma and grandpa, Dorfler in California.
Yeah, Carl and Dorothy.
That's right. About how much money is their home worth?
I believe it was about $800,000.
Yeah, right around $800,000. Thousand Oaks is a very nice area. They have a nice home. It's not extravagant. It's just housing's very expensive there.
Yeah.
But the reality is, could they move anytime if they wanted to and have $800,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
So say the two of them were officially below the poverty line. They were counted as poor.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think that's right that they're counted as poor when they're sitting on an asset that's worth $800,000?
Heck no.
Right.
They could come out here and they would be living in the life of luxury.
Well, exactly. And so conservatives say there's no way they should be counted as poor, right?
Well, how many people are like that? Not too many.
There's kind of more than you think. Again, I don't want to start telling personal family stories on here, but
you already threw Derek.
Yeah, threw Derek under the bus, right? Yeah. Under the helicopter. But anyway, the point is your eligibility for a lot of government programs is determined by your income, not necessarily your wealth.
Ah, so not my net.
Yeah, exactly. Not your net worth. Assets minus liabilities, right? That's your net worth.
Yeah, learn that in career prep.
Well, way to go. At least they're teaching you something valuable, they haven't taught you how to read graphs.
Hey!
Bell-shaped curves.
But that. Rude. Why am I even helping you?
Yeah, anyway. So, alright. Next, conservatives are concerned because there are many families and individuals who are officially counted as poor, but who do not think of themselves as poor people. For example, college students.
Suckers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, here's the thing. Are most college students going to be fine financially as soon as they graduate and get a pretty dependable job?
Yeah, you guys will be fine.
Yeah, you guys will be fine. College is a period of voluntary self-deprivation while you increase your future earning potential, develop a love of literature, who knows what other things, right? You do at college, especially a liberal arts college. But, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? And so the argument of conservatives is you really shouldn't be counted as poor because, quite frankly, there's a very different feel to your situation than someone who...
You don't feel hopeless.
Yeah, you don't feel hopeless, absolutely. And that's the thing, is it's a different situation entirely, conservatives would argue, right? Now, I know college students, I'm on your side. I say that all semester. And some of you may feel poor and you're like, hey, I'm living off, buttered rice or whatever it is. Right? But the thing is, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and most of you will get, pretty stable employment when you're done. Natalie, since you learned a little something about your dad while you're here, and when I worked at
Round Table Pizza?
No.
Kmart?
No. When I worked at Food for Less in college.
Ah.
Yeah. I was not making a lot of money, and I was a poor college student. And there was this rack of food, and if something got busted open, then it would go back on this rack of food, and employees were allowed to eat off of that rack of food, right? But it would sit there for sometimes who knows how long until it went back to the manufacturer or whatever. But we were allowed to eat off it, right?
How generous.
Yeah, I know. And one time I was eating off it and a rat scurried out of it. I know, disgusting, right? Do you think I stopped eating, or do you think I could? I know. Like, shoo, rat, shoo. And then these are my Oreos or whatever it was. And so, it's nice that I can look back on that story and laugh. But a lot of people would say, that's not really right to have people living in the United States of America, arguably the most prosperous country in the world in some ways.
In some ways.
A college student shouldn't be competing with rats for food, maybe. And maybe there's some merit to that counter argument.
You ended up okay.
Yeah.
No bubonic plague
Yeah.
as far as we know.
Yeah. Okay, next. Conservatives challenge the official definition because it excludes in-kind, which are non-cash benefits, such as food stamps. Okay, so now let's just stick with the number 26,200 in the year 2020 for a non-farm family of 4. 26,200. Okay, so stick with me and go through the math, Nat. I make $20,000.
$20,000.
I get $4,000 in cash welfare assistance.
Okay.
Am I still poor?
Yes.
Yes. All I have to come in is $24,000. But if I'm eligible for cash assistance, I'm also probably eligible for housing assistance, energy assistance, other nutrition programs, especially child nutrition programs.
Still doesn't mean you're rich, buddy.
Yeah, but say the cash value of all those things, say I costed out the cash value of all those things, and that took me to $28,000.
Woohoo!
Right? Now, would I be over the poverty line?
Technically, yes.
Technically, yes. And that's what conservatives say is, wait, people do make their wages, they do get welfare assistance, and they get other assistance. How many people do you have once you give them all that other assistance? Not that many people. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that winds up leading to kind of different definitions of poverty, right? The first is latent poverty. That's people who would be poor if there were no government welfare or social security programs. So that's people that are below that 26,200, looking at just their wages or whatever else they make. And that is the definition that actually liberals favor, right? Because they say, well, this is how many people would be poor in our country if we had no government assistance at all. Now, conservatives favor looking at net poverty, and that's people who fall below the poverty line after costing out the value of in-kind government benefits. So conservatives say, but we do help the poor. They have their own wages, they get welfare cash assistance, plus if you cost out the value of all the other government programs they get, they wind up, we get a lot of people over that poverty threshold. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, very good. Now, let's move on and talk about an overview of welfare policy. So today, about half of all families in America receive some type of government payments. Half.
That's a lot.
Well, see, it does. It sounds like a lot when you throw that number out, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of the government programs that are paying people money,
Yeah.
you have paid into earlier.
Yeah.
Right? Like Social Security is the best example of that. Medicare, you've paid into through your paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a little deceptive. So let's use the example of Social Security. It's the federal government's old age, survivors, and disability insurance program. For all employed Americans, it is a compulsory program. What does compulsory mean?
I don't know.
Seriously? Well, okay.
Judgment. I don't have to be here.
Okay, yeah.
You can be rude to me. I can be rude to you.
Okay, for all employed Americans, it is a compulsory program. That means you have to participate in it.
Okay.
By compulsion. You are compelled. All these go back to Latin roots for forced or pushed. Right? For all employed Americans, it is a compulsory program. So, is your Social Security contribution automatically taken out of your paycheck?
Yes.
Yes.
Take down mine.
I know.
That's ridiculous. You gotta take down my paycheck. I got my first paycheck. You know how much I get? Like 10 measly bucks.
I know. Welcome to working class America, right? So anyway, basically it's a combination of what you put in and what your employer puts in. You put in 6.2% and your employer puts in 6.2% for a total of 12.4% of your salary. It's kind of pretty steep, right? Yeah, that's pretty steep. Now, let's dispel some myths.
How fun, Mythbusters.
Right? Is Social Security intended to be a retirement program?
No.
No. It was just designed to alleviate poverty among the elderly. Right? Has it done a pretty good job of doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually it has. It's reduced poverty rates among the elderly quite a bit since it was introduced back in the days of FDR. Right? Okay. Next thing. Natalie, what have you heard about Social Security? Have you heard that it will not be there for you by the time you retire?
What? Are you kidding me?
No. Some people have heard that.
That's what I say. I'm getting other people.
Right, yeah.
Will be around for me.
Yeah, I know. But see, that statement is a little deceptive, right? Because Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system to a certain extent, right? Yeah. And so, we'll use some more examples here. Say we have 3 workers to every 1 retiree. And each of these workers, just to keep the math easy, pays $500 a month in Social Security taxes?
Yep.
Right? Then how much is a retiree, an average retiree, going to be able to get?
Ooh, $1,500.
Yeah, there you go, right? And so, here's the thing. Some people get overly dramatic and they say, oh, Social Security is going to be gone, this type of thing. They're kind of misrepresenting the situation. As long as there is money coming in,
yes.
As long as there's money coming in, is there always going to be some money available to go out?
Yes.
Yes, it may not be as much as retirees were originally promised, right? Or as much as they expected, all kinds of things, right? But the thing is,
it's there.
It's there. There's gonna be something, right? Because as long as you have current workers, you tax them, and then that money's gonna be available for current retirees. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. The problem is this ratio is shifting, and I'm not even gonna change this because of all the baby boomers. It's always the boomers.
It's
always the boomers. Right? So again, unless things have changed, the latest statistics I looked at are still valid, and that is about 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring. Right? I know. So they're leaving this worker pool, and they're entering the retiree pool. Right? Now say so many leave this pool and enter this pool that now the ratio is 2 workers to every retiree. Right?
You're not getting as much money.
Now how much are you going to get if there's only 2 workers for every retiree?
Oh, you're only going to get $1,000.
$1,000, right? Okay. So that's more the situation we're dealing with now, right?
Yeah.
That's more the situation rather than, oh, the money's going to be gone. No, it's...
The money doesn't just leave.
Yeah, the money just doesn't disappear. It's how much Social Security money is available is dependent on a number of things, right? One is this ratio of workers to retirees, right?
Yep.
So how can we keep people in this worker pool for longer?
In this worker pool, bump up the retirement age.
There you go. Bump up the retirement age. Instead of retiring at 65, now it's like 66 and... I know, and that's hard.
Shouldn't have all been born together.
Yeah, just bump up the retirement age. That's one of the easy solutions, right? The problem with that is, who is that going to impact more? Blue collar, manual labor jobs, or white collar workers?
Blue collar.
Exactly, right? Try roofing until you're 67.
That's going to be hard.
That's going to be hard, exactly.
I'm working in Dunder Mifflin's warehouse.
Well, exactly. The guys in warehouse. They're not going to last that long, right? And so, unfortunately, policies like this get made by members of Congress, and they, by definition, do not have manual labor jobs. No. They're politicians.
I don't think they've done much manual labor.
What's that?
So I don't think they've done much.
Well, see, that's the thing. Natalie, I'm with you on that. They haven't done much.
Are you going to bring up how you did road construction?
Of course, man. You do road construction for a while. You roof. It doesn't take long to do roofing to realize I got to get into another line of work, right? But especially roofing is usually ranked one of the most dangerous jobs out there. You're up there on a steep, pitched roof, full sun, stepping on nails, falling off roof. You know what I mean? And it's hard. Physical labor, right?
Yep.
And, but members of Congress, let's raise the retirement age. I can get back up on that roof till you're 67 now. Thanks. Anyway, so there's a concern there that raising the retirement age is all fine and dandy if you have certain types of employment, but it disadvantages manual laborers and others.
Yep.
Okay, so what other options do we have? Here's one you're probably not aware of, Natalie, and most of my students are not aware of this. You only pay Social Security taxes up to a certain amount.
Really?
And it changes a little bit each year. It was $113,700 in 2013, which was the last time I wrote it down. It bumps up by $1,000 or $2 each year. But the point is, right around $113,000, whatever it is right now, $115,000, you only pay Social Security taxes on your earnings up to that amount. After that, you don't pay Social Security taxes. You'll pay more in progressive income taxes, but you don't pay...
Not one kind of tax, it's another.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing. You won't pay anything in Social Security taxes.
Ha ha ha!
Right? So, is Social Security, in ways, a regressive tax?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It takes a larger percentage of the income of low-income people than of high-income people. If you're making over $100,000, you don't pay any more money in Social Security taxes, right?
Yep.
So, what's one of the easiest ways to generate more money for the Social Security system?
Tax the richer people.
Just lift that threshold. Exactly, right? Now, the problem with that is it kind of contradicts the spirit of Social Security, right?
Yeah.
Was Social Security intended to be a wealth redistribution program? No, it was intended to alleviate poverty among the elderly. If you're making over $113,000 a year, are you going to be just fine probably when you retire?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be okay.
Right. Exactly. So other solutions, you can tax people at higher rates. That would generate more income. How does that sound? More than the 12.4% that you and your employer are currently paying. Higher rates? You in favor of that?
No.
No.
I pay too much already. I don't even apply for other taxes.
It's always great when someone receives their first paycheck, first official paycheck, and they're like, "What?" But yeah. Okay, but anyway, that option's out there. And the other option is reduce benefits for people.
I have none.
Yeah, well, there you go. But we can tinker with those. I think the easiest, most painless way. I hate to be a soak the rich guy on this one, but I'd raise the threshold a little bit. You don't have to raise it to infinity. You don't have to gather Social Security taxes on all their earnings, but I'd raise it on more than we currently are. That's just me personally. Any question on that?
No.
Do you understand?
Yep.
Okay. Now, do you understand the logic of Social Security?
Kind of.
What is the logic of Social Security? Why do we have it?
Why do we have it? Because when you're not working, you don't generate any income.
Okay, there you go, right? In some countries, they don't call it Social Security, they call it social insurance, right? And the thing is, and we call it old age survivors and disability insurance. So if one of those things should happen to you, you're eligible for benefits, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why it's called a social insurance program. Now, we usually don't think of getting old as something bad that happens to us. But in a way, economically, is it something bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
You can't work anymore.
Yeah, you're just not as economically productive as you used to be. Now, in academia, as long as you keep your faculties intact, you can probably keep going for a long time. But in a lot of other jobs, your body just wears out. You know Jeff Chanavere, my friend that I grew up with?
Jeff Chanavere?
Yes, of course you do.
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, he's been cleaning pools basically since we graduated from high school. And how do you suppose his knees are doing after bending down?
From the way he plays soccer volleyball, not that good. Sorry, Jeff.
Well, yeah. So, in the U.S., we don't have a tendency to view getting old as something bad that happens to you. It's just part of life's course. It's inevitable. But from the standpoint of economic productivity, you're less economically productive. It's just, in general, a fact. Okay, so it's a social insurance program, and that's what it's called in Canada. It's called social insurance, not called Social Security. All right, now let's talk about unemployment compensation. All 50 states have established unemployment compensation programs. Unemployed workers must show that they are willing and able to work in order to receive unemployment compensation. Right?
Yes.
So, all 50 states have them. Natalie.
Yes.
Why do you think every single state has decided to provide unemployment compensation?
Because every single state has unemployed people.
Okay, exactly. Yeah, that's a big part of it. And the federal government has said if you have a state program, then we will help you administer it. Right? And so if the federal government's offering you money,
take it.
You take it. Exactly. And so basically, the feds say if you set up unemployment programs, we'll help out. So every state has done that. Now, okay, so a couple facts first. Usually you're eligible for 26 weeks, half a year, right? But every now and then when the unemployment rate is really high overall, and people are just having a hard time finding a job overall,
yeah,
the federal government will expand that and say we'll help out if states expand the number of weeks you're eligible, type of a thing.
Yeah.
And they've done that in the past. Now let me give you a scenario and see what you think about it so that you get the logic of unemployment compensation. First off, if you file for unemployment, in general, you don't get your full salary, right? You get a certain percentage of your salary to kind of hold you over till you can find a similar job.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now say I'm a computer programmer.
Okay.
Right?
No, that's going to be hard to imagine.
Yeah, I know, but say I'm a computer programmer and prevailing wages in my industry are $85,000 a year, and that's what my salary was. That's what I'm used to making. We have a home dependent upon that salary. We have cars dependent upon that salary. And now I lose my job. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so I file for unemployment. I get it. I get a certain percentage of my income now. And I'm looking for work and say I find a job not in my field making considerably less. Right? But I'm offered a job.
Yeah.
Do I have to take it or can I refuse it and still get unemployment? See, that's the thing. Unless things have changed, and feel free to correct me on this if I'm wrong. You don't have to take it.
Oh.
Yeah. And so now this comes back to the logic of unemployment compensation, right? My whole lifestyle is structured around the expectation that I will make $85,000 a year because that's what I've been making in my field.
Yeah.
Right? So if I take the first job that's offered me, say it's for $30,000, right?
Yeah.
Am I gonna have to sell my house?
Yeah, you are.
Probably. Am I gonna have to sell my vehicles?
Probably.
Probably. Or if I sell my house and I can't get a home in the same school district, are now my kids gonna have to attend a different school?
Yep.
Yep. Is this a lot of... Is there a lot of inefficiency associated here with losing a job?
Yes.
Yes. And so part of the logic of unemployment compensation is to try to minimize those inefficiencies, to give you some money,
yes,
to see you through until you can get a comparable job to what you previously had, making a similar amount of money, so you can keep your house, you can keep your vehicles, you can keep your kids in the same schools, and there it is, right?
Yeah.
In a capitalist free market economy, are people going to lose their jobs?
Yes.
Yes. And so we try to strike a balance between allowing market forces to operate while at the same time trying to be humane about this, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to sell your house. You don't have to put your kids in a new school. You don't have to sell your car, right?
Yeah.
We'll give you a period of time to try and transition to a different job making a comparable amount. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. All right. Well, that's the end of our discussion for today. Take care. Bye-bye.